Okay, today we are talking about equations of lines and transversals. So we're going to start with equations of lines, which is a little recap of slopes. So the learner will be able to calculate and identify the slope of lines, parallel and perpendicular, and identify the different types of angles formed when a transversal intersects lines is today's stuff. Now, for a lot of you, slope is going to be very, very familiar because we did it in Algebra 1. Slope is the difference of the y-coordinate divided by the difference of the x-coordinate. Okay, also known as rise over run. This is our equation. We have slope, which is represented by the letter m, is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so now we're just going to calculate the slope for the following points. So, like always, you should label your 2 points however you want. I just do x1, y1 and x2, y2. And then we just go through the process. So I have 9 over 7. So 9 minus my y1, which is 6. And my x2 minus my y2, which is 5. When I do that, I end up with 9 minus 6, which is 3, over 7 minus 5, which is 2. So my slope is 3/2. And we leave it as a fraction. Okay? On this next one, again, label your points so there's no confusion. And then we do the same process. -8 over 1 minus a minus 2 minus a -3, which makes this a big plus. Sorry, my handwriting sucks. Okay, so then we have -8 minus 2. Remember, same sign we add, so this is -10 over, and then we have 1 plus 3, which is 4. And so we can simplify this by dividing both the top and bottom by 2. We end up with -5/2 as our slope. Okay? Last example for slope. Again, label your points. Go through the same process. -4 over -3. Oops, sorry, I did that backwards. -3 over -4. Minus a -7, so big plus, minus 0. So I have -3 plus 7, which means that opposite signs we subtract take the sign of the bigger, so this is going to be a +4 over -4 minus 0, a -4, which means I can simplify this to a slope of 1 over -1. Okay, which means I go 1 in the y and -1 in the x. Okay, so that is our slopes. We don't want to reduce this to just 1 or -1 because we want that rise over run. Okay, so that is how we calculate slope. Next up we have parallel lines. Okay, the key here is parallel lines have the same slope. So that's a key takeaway that we could write over here on the side, is that parallel lines have the same slope. Okay? So that means write the slope of the line parallel to the line given. So I'm given y equals 2x plus 5. We know that lines are in the form of y equals mx plus b. And if we remember, m is our slope. So if it's not in this form, we want to get it in that form so that we can easily find the slope. So in this case, y equals mx plus b. So that's by m. So my slope is 2. So I guess we can go ahead and make this now. Okay? For this one, it is not in the form of y equals mx plus b. So I need to move my x to the other side with a little bit of algebra. and I get y is equal to negative 4x plus 2. So now it is in the form of y equals mx plus b, where negative 4 is my m, or my slope. So for parallel, it would be the same slope. On this last one, again, we want to get it in that form, so I'm going to start by subtracting 2x from both sides, so that I'm left with negative 3y is equal to negative 2x plus 6. Then I need to divide both sides by negative 3, so I get y is equal to negative 2/3 x plus, minus 2. And so my slope would be this negative 2/3, and so I'm left with negative 2/3. Okay, so a clarification would be we want equations in the form of y equals mx plus b to find slope quickly. Okay, so we want equations in that form so we can find the slope quickly. All right. Next up, it wants us to write the equation of a line that is parallel. So to do that, we can use what we already determined last. So we know that this number 2,1 was y equals negative 4x plus 2, and y equals I made a mistake here by subtracting 2x. I have a negative divided by a negative. My fault. I have a negative divided by a negative, so that's a positive. So I should have positive 2/3 here. My fault. Okay. So this becomes y equals 2/3 x plus minus 2. Sorry. Okay. So now I have my two equations, so I need to write two separate equations with different y-intercepts, because same slope, different y-intercept is how we do this. So I could say y equals 2x plus 0, because that's a different y-intercept. I could say y equals negative 4x, and I could say y equals 2/3 x. And all of those are parallel lines, but different slopes, or different y-intercepts, not slopes. Okay? So that's a key takeaway. Parallel lines have different y-intercepts, but same slope. Okay? Last up, we got perpendicular lines. So perpendicular lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have a slope that is the opposite sign and the reciprocal or the flipped of whatever number we have. So if the slope is 5, a positive 5, the opposite sign would be negative. And in the flip of 5, well, we could rewrite 5 as really as a fraction of 5 over 1. Ooh, I'm sorry. There we go. We could rewrite it as 5 over 1, so the opposite or the flipped of that would be 1/5, the reciprocal. Here we have 3/4. It's positive, so the sign becomes negative, and we do the reciprocal, which is 4/3. Here we have negative 10, so same thing. It's a negative, so it becomes a positive. It's really 10 over 1, so we do the reciprocal, or flip it, and we get 1/10. Lastly, we have negative 1/4, so the reciprocal would be a positive 4 over 1, or just 4. And so that's how we find the perpendicular. We do the opposite sign, and then we flip the fraction. So write the slope that is perpendicular to the given line. Well, these are the same ones from before, so I can rewrite this as y equals negative 4x plus 2, y equals 2/3 x minus 2. I need to write the perpendiculars of these. So the slope is 2, so I need the opposite sign, which is negative. It's a 2 over 1, so it becomes 1/2. The slope here is a negative 4, which means that it becomes a positive. It's 4 over 1, so I rewrite it as 1/4. And this guy is a positive 2/3, so it becomes a negative 3/2. And then for writing equations of a line that is perpendicular to these, it's the same rules as up here. We need the perpendicular slope and then a different y-intercept. So we can rewrite these guys again as y equals negative 4x plus 2 and y equals 2/3 x minus 2. And so for our perpendicular, we already have our slopes from the previous part. So I could say y equals negative 1/2 x, y equals 1/4 x, and y equals negative 3/2 x. And each of those would be perpendicular to the following lines. So that is a recap of slope, perpendicular, and parallel lines and how to write perpendicular and parallel lines.